I'm very happy that you've raised this subject, Larissa, because as a community of women, we have a very serious problem. And you have put your finger really on the issue. We don't see, I will be very blunt here because I think we're speaking amongst ourselves and also to all the girls who are listening to us because they need to know. We have an issue amongst ourselves, women. When we have reached a certain position, be it of power, be it of influence, or whatever we have achieved, we seem to be wanting to elbow other women out. And this is deplorable. And I will again be very, very boring and have to cite again Madeleine Albright when she says, there's a special place in hell for those women who don't help other women. And it's very true. I've witnessed it. And this is one of the reasons why I've said to myself, I will help that girl child. I will show her that she needs to believe in herself. But still, she still needs to believe in the community of women. And if we are going to rise together, we're going to have to take that girl by the hand and take that woman, young woman by the hand and make her rise with us. Otherwise, we're all going to sink together. And this is not something that we want. We want more women out there. We want more women out there because we need to change the narrative. And if you see what's happening in the COVID space, in the COVID era we are living in, we see that almost over 70% of the frontliners, they are women. But women who are influencing policy, they are less than 25%. So there's something grossly wrong here. So how do we change that? And I come up with another cliche that if there is no space for you at that table, bring a chair. Bring a chair along and make that difference. We need that. We need more women at the table. In fact, like has been said before, women have to be where decisions are being made.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And you have accomplished something very remarkable as the first female president. You're a world-renowned biologist. How do we start to accelerate opportunities for women in careers outside of the traditional roles that too often we are still channeled into and guided towards, rather than careers in STEM, or as a good friend of mine who I will be speaking with later says, STEAM, as we add analytics in the middle of that. How do we start to encourage women to look at careers in perhaps non-traditional sectors and industries?
I see the channeling of women as the very famous, leaky pipe syndrome. Right? We need to push more women in so that we have more women outside on the other side of the pipe. Unfortunately, there are many hurdles that women have to encounter, and that starts at a very young age. It starts with a girl child because she's forever being told that, science is not for her. She should be happy getting a husband, getting married, and, of course, nurturing kids. Of course, this is a very, very important role. I've done it. My mom has done it for me. And it's a very important role not to be neglected. But women can do so much more. But unfortunately, the stereotyping starts at a very early age. And in some parts of the world, when that girl child managed to get an education when she goes to school, the infrastructure is not there. It's not ready for her. I'll just give you an example. We are talking about girls, at puberty, getting the period. Very often they have to leave school for 1 week a month because the infrastructure isn't there for her to accommodate her as a girl. Then when she opens her book, what does she see? She doesn't see any women who have made it. And this is what we need to do. We need to change the stereotype in the textbooks. So she goes up. And of course, she goes up, she does very well. And she comes up at university. And I saw that when I was at the university, when I was teaching girls, they were doing so much better than the male colleagues. But they seem to be stuck at the middle management position. She doesn't get, kind of boosted up. And there again, so many cliches come in. If a woman is too ambitious, she'll be told, that she's too feisty, she's too aggressive, and all these epithets which get stuck to her. And of course, the other very famous cliche that I will come up with, when a man comes home late after a day's job, he'll be told he's hardworking. And when a woman comes home late after a day's work or whatever she's pushing, driving her own ambition, she will get told that she's selfish because she's not looking after the family. Again, I have lived through this, so I can safely say that these are the realities of a woman's life when she wants to further her career. And this is where I bring in the gender role, because gender is both men and women. And I think we have seen some countries that have been very, very famous in terms of the progressive policies, and they have seen so many women coming up very prominently. And that's Scandinavian countries, which have been very, very prominent in family-oriented policies. And they are earning the benefits. So these are things that I think at the level of the Justina Mutale Foundation, we need to keep on engaging with women to show women that they can do it, because they are needed up there. We need more women leaders. We need more women policymakers, more women scientists. And I think for the first time in the Nobel history, we have seen 4 women this year who have been, recognized for their contribution in whatever areas they have chosen to be in. That's a very, very important question, Larissa, and I'm very happy that you have raised it, because whenever a woman is precisely at the childbearing age, this is the time when she's also very productive in her career. And unfortunately, society will say she needs to take time off to look after the baby. But taking time off means 6 months, means 1 year, means 2 years. And this is, as far as I was concerned, it's time lost. Because the way she'll have to catch up when she gets back into that job, if she gets back at all, because by that time the second pregnancy or sometimes the third pregnancy kicks in and the woman gets marginalized. And unfortunately, her male colleague will not be accommodating. So I think this is, again, where progressive policies have to be put in place, where there can be a nursery in the job space. And this is something that many countries are adhering to. And this is also where parenting has to be shared. And there has to be more paternal leaves. And there has to be, of course, equally distributed leave for both mother and father. And this is something that society has to, again, this is a very, very cliche, and in some very conservative society, the rearing, of course, the child is still the woman's role. And so this is, again, what we have to keep on addressing, that the woman also needs her time, needs her space, and the policies have to accompany her. And of course, in many countries, the fathers are being incentivized to take the parental leave to look after the child. And those countries that have done it, again, and I think one country that has done it that comes to mind straight away is, of course, Sweden. And we see that the family thrives better because the father takes a much more proactive role in the family. And this is what we need as well. And in many countries, this still has to be challenged. And of course, this has to be done because we need both the mother and the father in terms of, in terms of joint parenthood. That's only fair.
How do we encourage the workplace, and this is globally as well, to be more accommodating to women in the workplace? You mentioned nurseries, which I believe is very important, but women have to be comfortable enough to use those nurseries without feeling that they're being belittled by male colleagues for having to take the necessary breaks throughout the day that the responsibility of motherhood entails. But women also too often feel in the workplace that they have to emulate a man. They have to dress in a very conservative manner, they have to keep their emotions in check. And part of the value that I believe we bring to the workplace is our varied perspective and our emotional perspective and our sense of empathy that we have. So how can we make global workplaces a bit more accommodating and welcoming to a woman as an executive or a young professional?
Yes. Again, I'm smiling because I have been accused. In fact, I'm very happy to see, Larissa, we're both wearing pink.
And it was not planned.
Exactly. We didn't plan it at all. I think a woman must be proud to be a woman. Right. And I've said this, I say this to my daughter, don't be afraid to say that you're a woman, you do things differently. Again, I'll come back to the COVID era. We have seen that those countries that have had the best result, at least for up till now, they have been countries that have been led by women. We bring in a different management style. We bring in empathy. We bring in communication, we bring it pastoral care. These are characteristics which women can bring. So please, when you're a career woman who have made it to a certain position, please don't change. Please don't wear this gray suit and this white shirts. Be comfortable to be wearing a dress. Be comfortable to be wearing high heel stilettos if you have to, if you feel comfortable in it. Of course, provided you can walk in them. Yes. So and when I used to say, when people used to call me Mr., because when you are at the end of the phone, when they see professor associate with you in science, the first reaction is to call you Mr. So I said to these people, please don't demote me. Don't call me Mr. I'm very happy to be a woman. So please call me Mrs. Please call me doctor. Please call me professor. But I'm very comfortable with being a woman and to be an achieving woman. So please don't change. Be yourself. That's a very tall order, Larissa, because in many parts of the world, it is still not possible to be a functioning woman as an entrepreneur. In many parts of the world, a woman has to be accompanied by a father or husband or a brother to even open a bank account. In many parts of the world, the laws are not on her side. She will not have access to credit. She will not have access to land because she is a woman. And again, in countries which deemed to say they are progressive, we need to change that law. That law has to be, and in some countries, I can also again mention, again, it is the Scandinavian countries, where if there are not enough women on boards, for example, these countries, they are liable to shut down. They can shut down. These companies are liable to be shut down by the state because they are not progressive enough. I have been on committees where if you don't bring in a certain percentage of women into the award of scholarships, for example, these projects, they will not pass. So it's a give and take situation. We need to have women acknowledging that, they need to do more effort towards women. We need to have the state also enacting the appropriate laws. But more importantly, we need a change in mindset amongst ourselves. When, again, I'll come back to the first question you asked me, we need to have women taking other women by the hand. And this is why we need more of the Justina Mutale Foundation to do what they're doing, to promote these women, to help them, to tell them that they can do it. And there are other women behind her, because very often women find themselves alone in position of responsibility. Mind you, it's a very, very lonely position to be out there at the top. But if we know there's a community of women behind us, we should be able to make more headways and make more progress in our respective societies.
Right.
I'm going to be provocative here. I think we have to start naming and shaming. If you look at some of the Fortune 500 companies, you're right. There are very, very few women. And unfortunately, again, Larissa, women, they tend to put themselves in a level where they will say, I'm not ready for that promotion. I should be 200% before I can actually aspire to be in that position. We should say no. When these kind of positions are being given, or their people are being appointed, men will go out there faster. So we need to tell that woman, even if you're 60% ready, go for it. Go for it. We need to be able to push them to that. But of course, at the end of the day, we need to start naming and shaming those companies, those institutions that don't give equal opportunity. And when a woman has been denied a position of responsibility or a promotion, she must be told to stand up and shout. It's only way. I'm not saying you have to bully your way in, but it's not very far. We need to start doing that.
Absolutely. And you also make another very interesting point, and very important point, in that men have to be an important part of this dialogue, and this gender inclusiveness. And, we can really begin to put this notion of a glass ceiling to bed if we start seeing the collective value that each gender brings to the table. And how do you think we can begin to further and propel this dialogue with men and include men at a greater level into the discussion of gender balance and gender equality?
I have chosen the word gender very, very carefully, because sometimes when men have been there to help to mentor a woman, that woman has been able to make massive progress. So we need the mentoring from men, because I'll be very, very candid again. They have been there first, in as much as, the rules of the game, they're still made by men. So we are playing by their rules. So we need them along as well to be able to help us. So we call on men, because I have always said that a girl child will make it very far when she knows that her cheerleader is her father, he's her uncle, he's her grandfather. And the same goes everywhere. We need to keep telling them that they are going to be fathers to girls as well. So they need to start playing a much more prominent role in the advancement of the women cause, because at the end of the day, they are husband, they are the sons, they'll be fathers to girls, so they will want their daughters to move as well. So we need to keep on this narrative every day. But I come back again to women. We need a strong community of women to help other women. I think the turning point for Mauritius was when education became free in 1976. I'm a product of that partly, but partly it has been the vision of my father to educate me, because when I was younger, education was, of course, you had to pay for the fees. But as soon as education became free, then the parent didn't have to worry, because at the end of the day, it makes economic sense to be educating a boy, because it's perceived that the boy, of course, will be the breadwinner eventually, and of course, look after the parents, which of course is changed totally now. But anyway, so that was the mentality at the time, the mindset. So when the parent had realized that they didn't have to pay for the girl's education, then she had access to it. So what we have seen is feminization of many various positions. If you go in the judiciary, you'll find many women. If you go in the medical profession, many women. Teachers, in fact, one day my daughter came home and said to me, I've got a man as teacher now. I said, well, what's wrong? She said, but all the time I've only had women teachers. So this became an issue at some point. But at the end of the day, we are seeing a feminization of our various profession. But unfortunately, in the world of politics, where laws are being made, we're still finding that the women are trading. And this is where we need to bring in more women, because when women are there at the table where policies are being shaped, that definitely changes the entire policy. So this is, again, where we are weak in the political world. There are many reasons why women don't want to go into politics, and we understand that, but I think we need to push them. And here again, I'll come back to this very notion of quota. We need to have this prop initially until it becomes a natural effort for women to go in. But initially, we'll insist on the quota. And unfortunately, the quota is still the minimum 30%, because if you want parity, I would say we have to go for 52%, but we're not there yet.
Absolutely. You mentioned education, which is so important, and which I, having grown up in the United States, even fell victim to, where girls are generally directed away from the math and the sciences. And, I struggled with math and was channeled in a direction that was clearly not in any of the STEM subjects. I was channeled towards English and some of the other areas that they think girls have more strength and skills than boys do. And that is absolutely a fallacy. I see that with my own daughter, who excelled at math and sciences, but it's still not a mainstream directional push for girls, in that they are strong at math and they can be great scientists. How do we begin to make that change systemically across the world, where girls are now encouraged to embrace those subjects rather than deterred from them?
That's a very good question. And I will just start by mentioning an event that I attended a few years ago, when I asked young girls between the age of 13 to 15, tell me who are the prominent women scientists that you know. And I was shocked, Larissa, because many of them didn't even know who Marie Curie was, because the books don't mention it, right? So here we have a very big, a huge task ahead of us to be able to change the stereotype. We need more role models, right? And this is, again, something that we'll have to, again, bring into the policy, because these kids growing up, they need to know that girl's brain is not different to a boy's brain, right? And we have seen role models. We have seen that so many powerful women out there, but we need to showcase them more and more. We need to make them more visible, so that we need to actually engage with them as we proceed. Of course, we can't have any more Marie Curie, but we can have the two ladies who have just been given the Nobel for CRISPR-Cas technology, the gene editing. So we need to tell them that women are good. Women can do things. Women do things differently, yes, but we are not any different, and we are in some instances better. So this is where we need to have the self-confidence to say to the boy child and the girl child that they can do it. And this is where the damage is done. This is where the girl get pushed away. But again, I'll come back to your question of the United States. You were the country that pushed ahead the Title IX, and that made a huge difference for the engagement of more people in education and more girls in education. These efforts were modest at the time, but we have seen the benefits in the long run. So we need more investment in education. And now I will go the extra mile to say we need more investment in quality education. We need to do less and less with rote learning. We need to do less and less in terms of memory learning, because Google is here to do that for us. The computer's here. We need to make them think laterally. We have to make them do things with their hands. So this is again where the quality, the education I receive as a child is no longer valid for my daughter, and it certainly will not be valid for my grandchild one day. So again, let's relook at our education, the quality of the education we impart to our children, because this is again where we'll be making a big difference.
Absolutely. I watched an interesting video last night on women inventors, and they asked girls from all around the world to name any women inventors, or to name inventors, and they all came up with Alexander Graham Bell and Leonardo da Vinci, and they were all males. And then they asked them to name a female inventor, and none of them could. And yet so many of the products that we have in society and some of the greatest scientific innovations came from men. But it must be a part of the curriculum beginning at a very young age, where boys are brought into this conversation right from their very first years in school too. But how do that's such a big challenge to do a systemic overhaul of what have been the traditional curriculums. Where do we even begin?
We begin with the school textbooks. We include, for example, when we look at the Apollo mission, we talk more about Katherine Johnson. We talk about the hidden figures that we have seen the movie on. We have to speak about the Marie Curie. Now we have to speak about the Charpentier. We have to speak of the Doudnas. So we need to keep on talking to these kids, and we need to have more role models out there to speak to the children. And we need to have more boot camps where these role models are there to speak to the girls and to make them dream, that it is possible. It's possible because other people have been out there. They have not followed the beaten track. They have gone past the beaten track. They have created their own track. And we have to keep on improving their self-esteem, because this is, again, where they go wrong, because they're always brought down. They're always told this is a girl thing. Girls cry, girls to play with dolls. There's nothing wrong in that. But we need to tell them that they can do things, and it starts at home. When the washing up chore is there, the boy has to do it. The mother has to ensure, the father has to ensure that the chores are equally distributed. Girls and boys, they all do the same thing. And this is where the respect, as I said, the cheerleader will come from there. And this is where it all starts. Changes will happen one family at a time.
Absolutely. I fully believe that. And you were such a wonderful role model and advocate for women during your presidency. And you really set the standard high for other female leaders around the world. How do we encourage women leaders to embrace the responsibility that they have to encourage the growth for women and the opportunities for women, not only in their country, but around the world? As so often a female leader falls onto the same train track as all the males, dealing with the issues that all world leaders have to deal with, but too often they don't take the opportunity to prioritize the acceleration of women in education and business and industry. How do we encourage other women leaders to do as you have done and become an advocate for the women in their countries through the position that they've attained?
You know, Larissa, one thing we have to also tell women and tell young people generally, they have to learn to start taking risk. I make my husband smile and I say, you know, I've taken 3 risks in my life. The first risk I took, I got married. The second risk I took is that I left my comfort zone of academia because I was a university professor. I could have just sat there and earned my pension just by teaching. It's a good profession. I took the risk of becoming an entrepreneur. And then the third thing I did, I took a risk to throw my hat in the political arena. So we have to take risk. We have to embrace it. We have to embrace it as if it's part of our daily life. And again, this is where women tend to shy away. Women tend to shy away because our makeup as being a woman, as a woman, if you look at our own reflex, our own reaction, we tend to take a step back when it comes to a position of taking a risk. Women sometimes they will not jump, for example, take this step ahead. That's because of our makeup. But we have to embrace the fact that we need to start taking risks. We have to nurture this. And again, this is something that we inculcate in our young girls when they're growing up. Learn to take risk. Learn to take calculated risk. Because that's the only way forward. That's the only way you break the mold, by learning to take risk and move ahead.
You touched on something that I'm very passionate about, and that is the entrepreneurial mindset and why it is so important to helping to nurture that in girls and allowing them to realize that they have the power to assimilate into any role that they want. And if it's not available, they can create it for themselves through this startup mindset and being an entrepreneur. How do we encourage that amongst girls at a greater level, and women as well?
Yeah, again, this is something that I keep pushing even now, is that we need to keep on building the ecosystem. And I come from the continent of Africa. Again, this is where Americas and Asia, they are ahead because they have created the ecosystem for example, somebody with an idea, an academic with an idea can come and test that idea and create their own enterprise. So this is something that we have to do. We have to keep on advocating that African countries, African governments, even governments, period, they have to keep on investing in the youth. They don't look at education or health or the social safety net as an expense. It is not an expense, it's an investment. And if we keep on building that ecosystem, that we will help provide the safety net precisely for these young kids, these young boys and girls for that matter, to come and develop the ideas. Because I keep saying that young people need to become job creators and not just job seekers. Why I'm saying it? Because all the data are showing that, for example, in the African continent, we are getting something like 12 million graduates every year landing on the job market. These are World Bank figures. And there's no way any government will be able to create the jobs. And not forgetting as well, if we are going to push for the 4th industrial revolution, we're going to find that automation will take away most of the routine jobs. So we'll need to be able to rethink our job creation, this sector totally, because automation will, of course, take away jobs, but we need to reassess our human capital and see where we can channel this human capital, these talents, into jobs of the future. Because if you look at the ILO figures, it's telling you that 60% of the jobs that our young kids are going to go into have not yet been created. So the challenges are out there. We need to have a rethink of our education. We need to have a rethink of the safety net. We need to rethink the ecosystem where these kids will end up one day and do the whatever they have to do. And this is where women have a key role to play, because women intuition must not be marginalized. We bring in a new narrative. We bring in a new perspective. And this is where men and women have to work together. But again, keep on investing in our youth. That's the future.
Absolutely. To switch subjects just slightly, and something that isn't necessarily directed just to women, but you and I both had the honor of participating in a conference on mental health a few days ago. And as we look at the external challenges that society places on our youth globally, we're now seeing a rise in the epidemic of youth depression. And how do we begin to encourage our youth to achieve their full potential while taking into consideration the unique struggles that they have that are wreaking havoc on their mental health, given our hyperconnectivity and our social media and just the external pressures to succeed and achieve? How do we balance the mental health struggles that our youth need to face with them being able to achieve their full growth potential?
You know, when somebody has a heart problem, when somebody's arm is broken, they'll be very happily say, they will be very happy to say that I've got this problem. But when somebody is suffering from depression, when somebody is suffering from a bipolar disorder, when somebody is schizophrenic, there seems to be a stigma attached to that. And I don't understand why this is like this. And we are, as you have rightly said, we are in a hyper-connected world. We are in a world where communication is so easy, and yet people communicate less and less. And we're finding that people sitting at dinner table with the mobile phone. I mean, why do we have to sacrifice this special moment of family time when we are again looking at, when our attention is taken elsewhere? So I think this is again where parents have a very important role to play in saying that this is special our time. We need to talk. We need to be able to speak, and parents have to be able to identify where the problems are. So we need to address communication as in the good old days or good bad days or whatever it is. Go beyond the gadget, go beyond the mobile phone, go beyond the IT, the social media revolution. And, you know, people get so depressed when they don't get likes on Facebook, for example. And they tend to, say, okay, people haven't liked my comments. So these are things that we have to understand. We explained in the values of life. So we have to go back to basics. But this is again where we need to have people who can listen. And in fact, I suggested, in fact, during that event we attended, is that the infrastructure has to be there for people to be able to lift the phone up anonymously and speak to people so that we can find out where the problems are. But more importantly, it comes back to family and friends. We need to be able to disengage the kids from this hyper-connected, frenzied world of multimedia and get them to speak, get them to know that there's a shoulder there for them to cry on, so that we don't see this pandemic, the rise in suicide. And we have seen that during the COVID era, where they were shut down, where people were forced to live with a violent partner and there's no one to speak to. And this is one of the reasons that motivated me to give my time to this cause, because it is such an important cause for mental health, and we don't do enough. We don't do enough. Sometimes we are guilty ourselves as parents that, we are so taken up with our careers, with our lives, that we don't pay that attention. So let us be more sensitive to the needs of young people, to our own children, to be able to speak to them on a daily basis. 15 minutes, 20 minutes is enough sometimes, and it's not long in 24 hours.
As we look at raising a new generation that will be navigating a very disruptive and transformational world, as we are in this UN-declared decade of action, where this is essentially the last decade we have in order to be able to save our planet environmentally and socially and so forth. If we don't do it in the next 10 years, the United Nations says that the planet will essentially go into a period of hospice where we just limp it along and we can't reverse the damage. How do you see sustainability, both socially, economically, and environmentally, playing a role in future careers and opportunities for women? And how can we really be the change makers of the future by integrating sustainability into our way forward?
Before I answer this question on sustainability, there's something that I hear on a daily basis. We are trying to save nature. We are not trying to save nature. Nature doesn't need us. We are a very, very small percentage of the species on this planet that nature can do without us. And this is something I say, that when we're saying we are saving nature, we're not saving nature, we are saving our own future on this planet. And I think we have insulted nature enough, right? The way we pollute, the way we consume, the way we do business, we are not being sensitive to what nature is telling us. The symptoms are there. I think nature told us, showed us rather, what can happen when you don't, pollute. We have seen the Everest for the first time in so many years. We have seen the air being cleared. We have seen nature back in our cities. So nature is telling us, work with me or else you are doomed. And this is something that people are not listening. We are not listening. We are talking about sustainable development, yes. But what is sustainable development? It's working with nature. It's respecting nature. You have seen, for example, and this again, of course, I'm sure the hypothesis might change. We are coming too close to the species of animals. How did the COVID happen? We are saying that the virus jumped. Why did the virus jump? We are creating so much damage in our environment that the virus is just one. Once we have gone over the pandemic, we are going to be confronted with climate change. And this is something that no world leader wants to hear, because it is going to threaten their own election, ambition. But we have to move beyond that. It is far too big. We need to be able to speak honestly and say, look, we have a crisis. Let us get together and solve it. And here I put this squarely at the doorstep of the G20. They contribute 85% of the GDP of this world. They should be able to tackle this, just like they have tackled the financial scandal. They have tackled so many things. They should be able to tackle climate change. And we put it squarely to them. So to come back to sustainable development, by 2030, we are going to be assessed as countries, as societies by the UN. But what have we done? Now, COVID has set us back. We have seen poverty. We have seen increased inequality. We have seen the headlines that over the past few months, the billionaires have become trillionaires. Okay, so good. More zeros to their wealth. But how is that helping humanity? How is that helping us? That's the question we have to say. At the end of the day, we all breathe the same air. We'll drink the same water, the same polluted water. So getting all this, we have to get our act together. We have to start moving ourselves to be able to deliver on the SDGs. And there's only one way. We have to make sure that no one is left behind.
Absolutely, fully. And with economics and sound finances being one of the pillars of sustainability, and one of the things that we're seeing is that we don't teach our youth fiscal responsibility. Why is that such an important aspect of the way forward for curriculums? Because we don't teach it. And now we're finding that we live in a cash poor society, and the general population is struggling because of COVID, because we haven't prepared adequately for a rainy day. How can we ensure that our youth are much more prepared for the economic turmoil and ebbs and flows as we move forward?
Larissa, is that, our education system, in some places at least, is totally detached from reality. What do we teach our kids? This again goes back to the basic curriculum. And unfortunately, a lot of the curricula we are bringing to our kids, they're completely out of date. And things are moving so fast. You have to talk about fiscal responsibility. I will talk about so many other forms of responsibility we have to keep on teaching our kids. And we're not there. And we seem to be in a rat race running after I don't know what. But, we seem to be missing the wood for the trees. And this is something which is challenging all of us, because we are finding we are rearing our children, and they seem to be completely out of touch with the real values. What is the value? Is it only money? And this is why we are where we are. We seem to have lost our pedals somewhere. And this is why we have to keep on bringing back this conversation, that there are other values we have to go back to. And, it's down to us, against parents and societies, what we do.
Absolutely. I think we have done a horrible job, as they say, of preparing the planet for our youth. So we must prepare the youth for the future. And I want to thank you today for being such a wonderful advocate and role model When women come together in solidarity and support, we are essentially unstoppable. And I salute you, Madam President, for being such a vocal champion of women and girls, and for joining me today for this very informative fireside chat.
Thank you so much, Larissa, and all the very best to Justina Mutale Foundation. And they're doing a great job, and they should be encouraged all along. Thank you again, and have a great day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.